Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be taking this and we're going to be making some paint with this, but also this, and we're going to be making patterns on naturally dyed fabrics. Let's jump in. Okay, we're going to make the red onion skin dye. Now, to save on energy, I'm boiling up my water in my hot pot. I find that it boils much quicker than in the pot, so I'm saving the energy that way. And it's nothing really fancy, just pour them into the pot. Remember, you need just pots for dyeing for this. This is just my spoon for dyeing. I don't use it for any food. And I'm just popping it in the pot, and when the kettle has boiled I'll just add water and then simmer for around half an hour. But most importantly, when the kettle's boiled, is coffee. This is what we use in Japan quite often. People use these hot pots. It's on a little swivel thing, it's very handy, and it keeps your water hot all day as long as it's plugged into the mains. Very efficient if you're making lots of cups of tea. Very efficient if you're a dyer also. Oh joy, they're still doing the construction outside, and because I'm dyeing I have to have all the windows open today, so it's very loud. And now we've got an ambulance going by. The sounds of Tokyo. Not very quiet. I might keep these coffee grounds and do a little dyeing project as well with a tiny swatch. Let's see. I don't throw anything away these days. Everything's got potential for colour. Okay, I'm going to have my coffee and I'll be right back. So we're going to put the water in the red onions now. I've dried these over a few weeks. I just keep a paper bag in my kitchen at home, and when it's full enough I bring them to the studio and then I start using them. So just water. I find this just a quicker and more energy efficient way, but you can see immediately it's releasing some kind of pigment as well, so it's quite cool to see. Right, so I'm going to fill this up as much as I feel like I need for my project, and then I'm going to put it on to bring it to the boil and then simmer it for about 30 minutes. I just wanted to show you before I even put it on the boil, I've still just been filling it up with this kettle. You can already see the amazing colour that's being released. So you can imagine after 30 minutes and steeping overnight, the colour we're going to get. It did half an hour boiling and then simmering, and this is the colour that I've got. It's still quite hot. It's kind of, I would say, wine colour. It's really pretty. So I'm going to let that steep overnight and hopefully get a little bit more pigment out of it for tomorrow, and I'll do the dyeing tomorrow. Meanwhile, we're going to scour the fabrics and then mordant them ready for dyeing tomorrow. So next I'm going to scour the fibres for tomorrow. I've got some soda ash, which its correct name is sodium carbonate, and tansan natrium in Japanese. And I've also got some basic laundry detergent. If you can get like a bio one, it's better. Like a real eco one is better, it's milder, but I've just got a regular one here. So I'm going to put a little bit of each of these in my boiling water pot, and I'm going to scour the fabrics. Putting in some soda ash, and now I'm going to put in some laundry detergent. This is already boiled water. I boiled it in my kettle again, and I'm going to bring it to the boil with the fabrics, and I'm going to let them simmer for 20 minutes. The fibres I'm putting in today are an old bed sheet, and I've got a t-shirt from a clothes swap, cotton t-shirt. I've also got another piece of bed sheet and I've got some kimono silk, which is unused but vintage, 2 pieces of that. And I've also got some more bed sheet. There's quite a lot. I'm going to pop it all in and make sure that it's boiling away now. It's day 2 and I'm just warming up the dye pot from yesterday. This is the colour we have, and it's actually really lovely, like a wine colour, and it's warming up, so I'm going to actually just pop in the fabric that I want to dye today, which is this piece of silk. Oh, I can already see the colour. It's going to be nice, kind of reddish brown maybe. Give it a swish around. If you want a more consistent, even look, I would suggest straining out all the onion skins, but I quite like it when I get unexpected blobs on it. I think it makes the fabric a bit more interesting, so I've left it in. So I'm going to let that boil for bring up to the boil, then let it simmer for half an hour or so, and then I'll probably let it steep overnight. But look at that already. So pretty. Alright, I'll let that do its work. So I have something to report. This is in here and it's just not even boiling, it's warming. It's not even really hot yet, and it's changed to this colour already. It's it's quite amazing. In this light it looks a bit yellowish, but in reality it's kind of like a dark greenish colour. So it's been soaking for about 2 hours, and I'm really happy with the colour. I want it to be a bit of a lighter colour because of the next technique that I'm going to do on top, so I don't want it to be too dark. So I'm going to get it out and I'm going to give it a rinse, and then we'll see what colour we've got. Pretty nice. Here's the dried fabrics. This is what the silk looked like before it went in the dye bath, and this is after it's dried. It's a really gorgeous kind of chartreuse green, absolutely stunning. And now we're going to try a new technique on the dyed one, and to try to colour shift to make a pattern. I've covered my table with some scrap paper because the iron will mark different things, and also make sure not to get any on your hands because it does stain and it gets worse and worse as the day goes along. So I'm going to put my fabric down first, and it's a little bit uneven, the dyeing, but I quite like that because it was sitting within the materials, but I think it's really pretty. What I've already done is I've put some ferrous sulfate, which is this turquoisey coloured powder, basically iron, in some warm water, and it's now dissolved and it's made a kind of rusty liquid, and I'm just going to paint with it. Simple as that. It's nothing more complicated. I'm just going to make some patterns and we're going to see what happens. Okay, just make sure it's a bit mixed up, and we'll see if there's any reaction at all. It's kind of hard to control this because it's very very liquidy, obviously because it's water, but We'll see if this is enough. You don't want to put too much of the ferrous sulfate in. I put about a teaspoon in. The reason you don't want to put too much in is when you rinse this off, you don't want to contaminate the whole of the fabric. As you can see, this is still wet, but you can see that the iron is reacting already. And I'm going to let that dry and give it an iron and see the actual pattern that we got. I'm just going to show you what happens on the cotton when we do a pattern using the iron water, the ferrous sulfate water. It's got some residue in the bottom since yesterday, so I'll give it another swirl. So I want to show you how controllable or not it is. I'm just doing a really tiny blob and see how far it soaks in. On the silk it was very, very quick to soak. I don't know whether it's going to make any difference on this. Silk I had some great results with, which I'll show you at the end. Some results, maybe. It does take a little bit of time to do this, so... Oh yeah, I can see it changing already. I'm going to set this aside and let it do its magic, and then we're going to do a different technique. So I thought, just as an added bonus, I would do another colour changing technique, and this one is I'm using lemon juice, but actually you can use powdered citric acid, which I have on order, so I'll try the chemical version another time. But this is just a lemon that we used at dinner last night, and this is the other half of it, but it wasn't a very juicy one, so I'm hoping I can get some juice off it, but it wasn't a juicy one at all, so we'll see. So I'm going to squeeze citric acid out, sorry, the lemon juice out, and hope that I can paint with it. So there is some there, so that's great. There we go. And I just got a little drop. And let's see if this makes any difference. Let's see. Ooh. It's spreading through the silk. The silk is very greedy when it comes to, or very thirsty when it comes to liquid. I can see an immediate change. And it's not the same as the iron water, which is very cool. It's kind of going a pinkish colour, purpley pink. Kind of the colour I thought that the red onions was going to dye in the first place, to be honest. I was a bit surprised it didn't dye the colour of like purpley colour, but this is bringing out the purple, which is super interesting. And it's happening immediately. It's very cool. I wonder if you mix this with something to stop it spreading, it would work like guar gum to stop it spreading through the fabric. I don't know. That could be an experiment that's coming up as well. Okay, so let's just let that sit aside and dry, and then I'll rinse it off, and then we will do the final press and find out what actually happened. But you can already see the colour changing that's happening. The chemical changes are happening right in front of our eyes. go into like a purpley pink colour. Very nice. So here's the same cotton that I used before for the iron water, and now I'm going to just use it with the lemon juice and see what happens, what kind of colour the cotton gets. So it might be quite different because it behaves slightly differently. But immediately I can see it changing to pink. It's really cool. If you're doing a large piece of fabric, I would suggest get one of these fillable pens. I use these for watercolour, so I just put water in them and then use it to do the watercolours when I'm out and about. But you can also fill this with the lemon juice or even the iron water, and then when you squeeze a little bit, the brush will fill, and then you can, you know, it's not as time consuming going backwards and forwards like with a paintbrush, and also it's a lot more of a flow. So I would suggest using those. Here's the results from, you can sort of see it coming through pink, so I'm going to let that dry and I'll show you the final results when I'm ironing them. I wanted to say something about the exhausting of a dye bath. So remember we started with this cream coloured silk. This is actually the same material, all three of them. This one is the scoured and mordanted one. This is what it looked like before it went in. Then it went into the dye bath for around an hour, and then once this had been taken out, I had the dye left, and I thought I'll just try and dye another piece of silk, and this is the colour it came out. So that is the difference between an unexhausted and an exhausted dye bath. The colour is really different, but also from the beginning to the exhausted bath is also a nice colour in itself as well. So if you want a different shade, you can also continue to use the dye bath until it's completely exhausted. We're on to the final reveal now for the red onion skins dye, and I've put them in my dye diary already. This is my thrifted dye diary with all my projects inside, and today's project is already in, and I wanted to show you the basic colours that I got just from the red onions. So I've got a cotton, which is the red onion colour, which is surprisingly green. And this is the colour after iron. It's a slightly shifted colour, quite sad, quite nice. Not sad in a bad way, not bright green, like a really nice subtle green. This is the colour you get when you dye silk. This is like a plain silk lining, and then this is after the dye. This is after the iron bath. And then this was, I showed you before, the exhausted silk dye. Sorry, the exhausted bath dye. So it was a very subtle sort of pale green, and it actually made a really lovely green after iron. So I'm so pleased with that one. So these are the basic colours without patterns on. So now the patterns. This was remember this was the plain coloured fabric. This is, I really am happy with this chartreuse of this. It's just really stunning. So that's the dye just as is, which is a really nice colour as it is. But then I put some patterns on. So I'm going to show you the patterns. This was the iron pattern. Now it's dry and washed and ironed. You can really see the pattern that I made with the iron paint, the rust paint. So I'm very happy that's the back. Really happy with how that turned out. Also, what I'm really happy about is that the background of this fabric didn't get contaminated by the iron. So I was so worried about that the iron would wash onto that back, and then because it's mordanted, it would just take the colour, but it didn't. So that's really a really happy end to that one. And I also did iron on cotton, which frankly, I don't know whether you can see that. I put it on my white, on a white background, and then you can see. I don't think it works that well unless you want a very, very subtle pattern. It's almost not worth the effort, I think. Maybe I needed to make more of a concentrated iron mixture, but I didn't want to do it too strong because I didn't want to contaminate the background. It could also be that cotton is just notoriously hard to dye. So that was the iron patterns. I also then did it with lemon juice, so the citric acid from lemon juice, and a completely different thing happened. As you can see, it kind of bleached this one, but it sort of bleached it sort of bleached it pink, in a really weird pink. I'll show you on the background. It's definitely not white. It's like a pink. That is not, it's subtle, but you can actually still see there's a pattern there. So I'm quite happy with this one. Very subtle though. I think this one would look really good mixed with avocado, like in a scarf or something like that. Would look really cool. So a surprising thing is, when I did it on the cotton with the citric acid, with the lemon juice, it actually bleached it white almost. So you can see the pattern that I did. A very different look on cotton than silk. That's what I've been finding out with dyeing, is that silk behaves very differently. Animal fibres are very different to the cellulose fibres, so the plant fibres. So it's all a massive learning curve, but anyway, I'm really happy with all these different colours and patterns that I made this week. How amazing were the results this week? I'm so pleased I can now add patterned fabrics to my repertoire. So don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more from me. Also leave me a comment below if you have a go at making your own patterned fabrics. See you next time.